Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2024 GMC Acadia. If you own an Acadia, you know it has quite a bit of room inside. It even has an option up top so you can add on a roof rack so you can haul some more gear, but realistically, if you're really wanting to get the most out of your vehicle, you're going to need to throw a trailer hitch on there as well, so that way you can get that cargo carrier, your bike rack, or tow a small trailer behind you so that you can haul all that stuff that you want to take from point A to point B. So the nicest thing about this trailer hitch design is that this is going to tuck up behind your fascia here, so that way you can still just pop on your hitch cover and no one will even know it's hidden back there. It's going to have a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is going to be the most common when it comes to our accessories that we want to install in here. And if you do have a 1 1/4" bike rack or cargo carrier, you can get a reducer that you just slip inside of our receiver tube here, and then you can install whatever kind of accessory that you're needing to. Now, this is going to be just the trailer hitch. This isn't going to come with the hitch pin that you're going to need, which is going to be a 5/8 hitch pin. And personally, I prefer going with one that is locking and if I can, one that's going to be anti-rattle as well. So that way I don't have my ball mount or any of my accessories that I have in here rattling around and I hear all that noise. It's especially important if you have a bike rack or on those cargo carriers where you don't want to have a bunch of play with it, because then you can end up damaging the bike rack, damaging your bikes, or if you have cargo, you could have that potentially slide around on your cargo carrier and then your straps are going to get loose and then you got stuff all over the road. So being able to secure it nice and tight with an anti-rattle hitch pin can make a giant difference. Now, if you are going to be towing this with a trailer, towing a trailer with your trailer hitch, there is also the safety chain loops that can potentially be a pinch point here. Now, with our S-hook style, we got plenty of space here. It's going to be nice and easy to put that on, take it off. Now, over on our driver's side, I do have some wiring in the way. Not really an issue with our S-hook style, but with our larger clevis style hook, still good on our passenger side. Over here, you might have that kind of hit against that if you're making like a really sharp turn, but other than that, you should be pretty well off with either style of your safety chain. But along with that, there is also some different measurements that we're going to take here just to make sure that your accessories are actually going to fit. So the first one I'm going to go with is our height here. So from the bottom of from the ground up to the inside of the top of our receiver tube, we're sitting right at 20 5/8 inches, and that's really good. With this being tucked up behind the fascia, you really shouldn't run into any ground clearance issues where you're going to bottom out and potentially scrape the shank of your accessory on the ground. Along with that, we have our hitch pin hole, so we're going to go from the center out to the furthest point on our fascia. So that's going to give us our clearance for anytime we have a folding accessory that's going to fold up towards our vehicle. We don't want that rubbing against our fascia or potentially hitting it and scratching our paint. So for that measurement, we're looking at right around 2.5, maybe 2 3/4 inches. So really good there. You realistically shouldn't have any kind of accessory that's going to fold up into that space, just because the shanks are usually going to be quite a bit longer. But the pinch point here is going to be the end of the shank. So on some accessories, the shanks are quite a bit longer past that hitch pin hole. So you can run into issues, and usually I see this where the muffler's behind the trailer hitch, but in our case, this is the body of the vehicle, and right inside of there is where our spare tire is. So from the center of the hitch pin hole back, we're sitting right at 4 inches. So if you do have an accessory that has an excessively long shank past the hitch pin hole, you're going to want to measure from the center of that back. And if it's more than 4 inches, you are not going to be able to get this in here because it's going to end up hitting the body here behind the hitch. So in terms of capacity, our trailer hitch receiver is going to have a 5,000 pound gross towing weight capacity, which is the pulling force. So anytime we're pulling a trailer behind us. And then for our tongue weight, that's the downward pressure into the receiver tube. So that's going to be any bike rack, cargo carrier, or accessory that's sitting up off of the ground. That's going to be 500 pounds, which is pretty good overall. But I would definitely double check what your vehicle is actually capable of handling. It might not be able to handle that 5,000 pound capacity when it comes to the gross towing weight. So make sure that you double check your owner's manual and figure out what is going to be a safe limit here. So one other question we get here is, When I get that trailer hitch installed, is my kick sensor still going to work so that way my lift gate will actually open? And we can give you a little display of that right now. You just got to kind of feel around. There we go. Just find that sweet spot. Now, you do have that cross member of your trailer hitch in the way, but at the same time, you had a cross beam there prior, and that's for your crash beam. So it's not like you're really replacing too much here to where you'd potentially block that sensor. It should still function exactly the same as it did before. For this install, this is going to require removal of the rear fascia, so that can be a little bit of intimidating when you really start to look at this. But overall, this one really wasn't super challenging. They have all the hardware in a pretty easy to reach space, so it's not like you're really struggling to get to anything. The only thing that could be kind of difficult is just once you get the hitch in, just getting your fish wires in place and then getting those nuts tightened down on that, just because it is a little bit of a tighter space for that, just because the exhaust is in the way. But overall, this is something I think you could easily do at home yourself. But if you just don't have the time to do so or the tools, then please feel free to use our dealer locator, and you can enter in your zip code to find a shop near you and get it professionally installed. If you're wanting to do this yourself, then stick around and I'll walk you through the process. Starting off our install, we're going to be down at the bottom of our bumper cover. There's going to be 2 screws that are going to be held in place, and we're going to need a T15 Torx bit to remove. Pop these out. And then we're going to go up above with our T20 Torx bit, and we're going to have a screw on either side that we're going to need to pop out as well. Now we're going to be removing the little panel here that's hiding the hardware for our taillights. We're going to do this on both the driver and passenger side. You just pull straight back. It's going to have 2 clips and then one at the bottom, which is why I'm pulling straight back, because of the way that this is angled into here. And I'm going to do that, like I said, on both sides. Now on both sides there's going to be a screw that's holding in our rear fascia up to our body here, and that's going to require a 7mm socket to remove. And we'll do this on both the passenger and driver side. So since we're going to be removing our fascia, I'm taping along the edge of it so that way we're not having our paint get scratched as we pull the fascia on or off. And essentially we're just trying to get this as far into the crack in between the piece that we're pulling off and anything else that it's attached to. So in our case, that's the tail light. Now in the instructions, they do tell you you can take the tail lights out, and it makes it a little bit easier to pop off. But that's a lot more work of just pulling other pieces out instead of just using some tape here. Now if it is a problem where you're really having a hard time getting that fascia off, maybe circle back and then actually take off the tail lights here. But I'm going to see if we can get away with not adding on extra here, just because we're going to have to tape this anyway, so we might as well just try that first. Starting at the bottom of our wheel well liner here, we're going to have 4 screws that are all going to require a T15 Torx bit. And I'm going to be using a right angle driver so that way I can get in here really easily. Pop all 4 of these out. Once we have those out, we can then pull our liner back. Give us a little bit more working room. And then on our trim right here, we're going to be pulling up. So there's a tab that goes straight down into here, and that's really what's going to fight you. Once you get past that, it's all just push pins running up the length of this. Let me stand up. And some of these push pins will just pop right out. I'll show you in just a second. A lot of them will want to stick inside of the body. We're going to pull our trim piece all the way up to here, and then we can see the screw that actually attaches our fascia to the body here. All these little clips, they literally just pop right out of the holders, and you can just put them right back in. So in my case, since they're still stuck into here, I'm going to take my trim panel tool, and just gently pop them out and place them back where they need to. So that way when we go to put our trim back in, it's going to click right back into place. To remove our screw, we're going to need a 7mm socket again. Pop that out, and then we are going to grab just a shop towel. I'm going to stick that in here and kind of keep a little bit of separation here, but also something that's not going to scratch up our paint. Once we get that, we're going to grab a second set of hands, and we're going to start by getting our fascia removed. So now that we have all of our hardware removed, we're going to be able to start pulling away on our fascia. So on the side here, I'm going to just pull directly out. And I've got Aiden on the other side. He's going to be helping us take off our fascia. Just want to take it nice and slow. Work your way all the way to the inside here. And then on our driver's side, we got a harness we're going to need to remove. If you want to come on this side, you can see a little bit better. So we've got a red little clip we're going to press back, and then we can press in on this black tab right here. There we go. So the black tab is this guy right here, just behind our latch. And now we can set our fascia aside. Now the next step is going to be removing our crash beam, but before we do that, we want to make sure that we're supporting our exhaust, because the bottom two bolts that go to our crash beam also house the bracket that holds up our exhaust. So I am going to take a cam strap. I'm going to place one side on our coil spring over on the passenger, and then one on the driver's side spring as well. And we'll tighten that up so that way it helps support our exhaust. And I'm going to lower this back down, and then we can start taking out these nuts. All right, now using a 15mm socket, we can get the two bolts down below on our hanger holding up our exhaust, and then the two nuts up top holding on the other side of our crash beam. Slot in our trailer hitch. It's going to go right into those frame rails. We're going to rest up on these studs up top. Now on the top, we're going to reinstall those nuts that we had previously. Just leave them a little loose right now because there is a little bit of wiggle room here, so you will want to make sure that you do have your hitch perfectly centered. So as you can see, there is a slot for all of our mounting points here. So that's where moving it back and forth is going to come into play. You can then snug down those nuts. It's going to be fish wiring in our carriage bolts and our little spacer blocks. And there's going to be two different ways you can do this. Personally, I think the easiest way is going to be using the tip, pushing it in to the back, and then what I do is I stick my finger up through the mounting hole, and then I have it touch my finger, and then I'll keep pressure on it and pull it down, and that'll usually allow me to pop it out right where I need it to. So the bigger issue here is that this tube, this cross tube that's running straight into our frame rail, is open once it gets a few inches in there. So the other way of doing this would be to stick the screw side of this up through that hole and then get it out and then put our hardware on and pull it through. But the problem is every time you try to come up that way and do that, it's just hitting the top of our inner frame rail here instead and not sliding all the way out because there's nothing to really kind of bring it back down. So I'm gonna just stick the tip, or like the open end here, all the way back, have it touch my finger, and then I'll pull it down like I showed. Now it is a little bit of a challenge sometimes, just trying to get the feel for it, but this one actually came out pretty easy. So I've got that down there. Now before I pull too far, we need to get our hardware on here. So the first thing we're gonna do, this way, we're gonna have to put on our spacer block first. That's slid in a little bit. And then we can thread on our carriage bolt. And then now we'll grab the other end and just pull our hardware into place and get that to drop through. Now the heat shield kind of blocks it. You can't see it too well on this one at least. And at this point I am going to just pop off the fish wire. And we're just going to repeat that with the front hole right here. Should be right there. And once again, we'll put our spacer block, then our carriage bolt, slide those in, and then we can remove our fish wire, and we're going to have some flange bolts that we're going to thread on here. And this one's a little bit easier to kind of get your finger up in there against the threads and prevent it from trying to pop back in. But on that back one, there really isn't much room, so you're going to want to be real careful when you're trying to start the threads on that, so that way you don't accidentally push up on the bolt. If you have a long pry bar that's skinny, you could probably also stick it up into the tube here to press down on the bolt head. But I got that one started. Get our back one now. All right, that one's started. Now we're going to come back and we'll tighten down our 1/2 inch nuts with a 3/4 inch socket to the manufacturer's specifications. Now we'll take our M10 bolts along with our conical tooth washers. We're going to slot that onto our bolt, and then we'll come back to the lower end of our hitch here, and with our exhaust, we're going to get this lined back up. The first one just started here. Second one. And then using an 11/16 so we can snug these down, and then we'll come back and we'll torque these 2 bolts as well as our nuts up top. So at this point, all of our hardware is torqued down. Our hitch is ready to go. We just have to throw on the fascia again. But before we do that, our neighbor is also going to be getting some trailer wiring, which I highly recommend picking up as well. So that way you can transfer over your light signals and be able to pull a trailer. And also with ours, he's switching over to a 7-pole. So let me grab it right here. We have an easy plug-in if you have the factory tow package. It just sits right here. So while the fascia is off, this is the perfect time to get to it because you got plenty of room to get here, run your wiring along the hitch, mount it up, and then also secure it out of the way without having it get near anything that's going to be hot or moving. So this is a prime opportunity to get that installed and be able to transfer those lights. And if you have the 7-way version, to be able to actually actuate any brakes that are going to be on that trailer as well. Now that we have our wiring in place, that frees us up to then reinstall our rear fascia in reverse order. The only other thing we need to do is just remember to get back under here and get our cam strap out, since our exhaust is now being supported by our hitch again. That's going to do it for our look at and installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2024 GMC Acadia.